Hello everyone, and welcome to week 8. In this video, I am going to be reviewing Unit 2 as your essays are due this Friday, October 9th by 11:59 p.m. Now I'm going to share my screen with you. So first, I'm going to show you the assignment in which you are going to submit your essay. Please submit your essay to the assignment titled Response Argument Presentation Draft. Okay, so submit your assignment to Canvas October 9th by 11:59 p.m., please. Now moving on to the text spec. So as a review, similar to Unit 1, I'm going to go through the Unit 2 chapter and review the main subject points and objectives of the Unit 2 essay. So to begin, what is the main objectives of the Unit 2 essay, and what is it about? What are you doing overall? So Unit 2 is the response essay. You are responding to a previously written argument or article. In this case, you are either responding to Bill Keller's A Twitter Trap or Satyen Devadas's A Math Problem for Pi Day. Remember, you must respond to whichever article you wrote in your Unit 1 essay. You cannot change your response to that essay at this point. You must respond to whichever essay you previously wrote on for Unit 1. I'm just emphasizing that now so no one makes an error at this point in time as we near midterms. So moving down. So for this essay, there are a few key factors which you must do in the essay. You need to, first of all, and I have highlighted, as you'll see in the text, main points which I want you to pay attention to as I review them. You need to incorporate 2 credible outside resources in your essay, a minimum of 2 outside resources in your essay. I am emphasizing that, at least 2. I encourage you to use more than 2. The best possible range is 3 to 5, but you do not have to use more than 2 if you do not want to. So the response essay. Basically, the response essay is you entering the conversation. What do we mean by this? We mean that you are stating how you respond to Keller's or Devadas's argument. What are your thoughts on their argument? How do you feel about their main claim? Would you agree with their argument? Would you disagree? Do you agree and disagree? Did you think their audience agreed or disagreed? This is what the response argument is. You yourself are now making a claim. This is what your response is. It is your thesis. It is your claim. So there are 3 types of theses or thesis you can choose from. So for this essay, you are choosing one of 3 potential claims to write on. You can either do agree, disagree, or agree and disagree. So the first is agree. If you agree with the original article, you're in a position where you'll need to move the conversation forward, meaning you need to respond to the author's main claim. You might agree with it, but then you need to say yes and. So yes, I agree with the main claims. However, I need to think something new to add to this argument already, something that wasn't already stated in the argument, something that might further support it, something new. What am I going to add? A different perspective that develops an affirmative stance on the topic. So it further develops connections that the original writer did not already make. However, if you disagree with the original article, you will need to identify exactly what you disagree with and why that disagreement is significant to the larger conversation. So your response needs to present your views in a manner that is appealing to your neutral audience. So keeping in mind that you have a neutral audience, so you don't want to be hostile if you disagree. You want to be respectful in disagreeing with Keller or Devadas, but you can disagree with his claims, both of their claims. So if you disagree, you need to focus on why your perspective, why your claim, your thesis, is different than the author's. Support your disagree claim, your response claim, with evidence. Alternatively, if you find that you're in the middle, you both agree and disagree, you can choose an agree and disagree claim. So your response needs to therefore present both perspectives, agree and disagree. You describe the relationship between the ideas in which you agree and disagree. This inherently is already a multi-sided argument because you are acknowledging both sides of the issue. With an agree and disagree claim, you are writing essentially an agree and disagree essay, except miniaturized somewhat within your response argument. So you're basically writing partially an agree thesis within your essay. You're saying, what's something new I can add to the conversation? What's something I agreed with in Keller Devadas' argument and I thought could further support it? But you're also saying, hey, I disagreed with some parts of their claim. What did I disagree with, and what's some evidence I can include to show why I disagree and to support my claim? So that is the difference between agree, disagree, and agree and disagree. So handling alternative and opposing views. So whichever response strategy you choose, you need to demonstrate that you're using multi-sided argumentative strategies. So again, I did just previously mention that the agree and disagree claim is inherently a multi-sided essay. However, with agree and disagree, and even with agree and disagree, you are going to be including concession and rebuttal strategies. So that's what we refer to when I say, or when the book says, the text says, handling alternative or opposing views. So to review what you want to develop and include in your response essay, it's going to be about 4 to 6 typed double-spaced pages, 12-point font Times New Roman, and you want to provide a brief background about the conversation and the original article's ideas. So you want to provide a summary. So here's where your summary work comes in. You want to provide a summary of Keller or Devadas' argument. So provide some context for the reader. Address a neutral audience with a respectful tone. So again, address that neutral audience. Don't be hostile. Don't be overly agreeable or biased in your stance. Be neutral. Consider all sides of the argument. Present a focused thesis. So definitely make sure that thesis is clear and distinct. Remember all the practice we've worked with thesis in the last unit and a half so far. Develop your claim and reasons by presenting and responding to ideas from the original article. So again, you're going to provide summary, so context of your original article's claims and evidence. And then you are going to, when you respond to it throughout the essay, reference the article every now and then respond to those claims and evidence with your own claims and evidence to support your claim and theses. And then develop your argument by using alternative and opposing views. So again, use multi-sided argumentative strategies such as concession and rebuttal. So main objectives. Argue a claim. So again, include a thesis that is agree, disagree, or agree and disagree. Present a multi-sided argument with rebuttal strategies. Identify weaknesses in an argument's reasons, warrants, and evidence. If you use multi-sided argumentative strategies correctly, This should already be included in your argument, but you of course want to double check that you're doing so. And consider and make sure that you are using a neutral tone. And the common weaknesses that are often found in a first draft, a presentation draft of a response essay. The writer creates another rhetorical analysis rather than responding to the issue. So what often happens is that students get too caught up in analyzing the evidence they have found to support their thesis claim as far as using the rhetorical appeals. You don't want to do that. You want to keep those in mind as far as constructing your own argument. You want to think in the back of your head, am I using enough logos to persuade my audience? Am I using enough pathos? Is my credibility as the author or the writer or the type of evidence I use good? Is it credible enough? However, you don't want to discuss the rhetorical appeals in this essay. The writer does not consider his own ethos and uses offensive tone language. So again, always be respectful to your audience. The writer shares from only one perspective without considering alternative opposing views. So your writing or your essay is fairly biased, or at least even if the tone isn't biased, you don't consider the alternative perspective in your essay. And the writer does not provide sufficient evidence to support your claims. So you either do not include a minimum of 2 outside resources, or those 2 outside resources are lacking or are not credible, or you have 2 outside resources, but you do not use, or you have more than 2 outside resources, but you do not use enough evidence from them to support your essay. And then, as I have reviewed in the PowerPoints, the difference between an invention activity and a response, or excuse me, an analysis essay and a response essay, which I just reviewed in the objectives also. So again, you don't want to analyze the rhetorical appeals. There's a clear difference. In a response essay, you are engaging with the content. You want to do that this time. You want to respond to the author's main claims and provide evidence to support your own response to the author's claims. So again, entering the conversation, you are engaging again with the argument. You are entering the argument that has already been made. So this is called entering the conversation. Multi-sided arguments and undecided audiences, again, which I briefly just discussed. So the audience for the response argument is neutral. They are neither strong advocates of your position, nor are they antagonistic to what you have to say. So as we see here in this chart, we have supportive audiences, known as believer audiences, on the left, skeptical and highly resistant audiences, sometimes hostile audiences, on the far right. And then in the middle, we have neutral audiences. This is who you are writing to in your essay. You want to remember this as you think of how you use multi-sided argumentative strategies. And you want to remember to include evidence that might appeal to all sides of the argument. You'll want to try multi-sided argumentative strategies in which you demonstrate understanding of the different sides and positions that constitute the issue. So again, this is part of enhancing your ethos as the writer. And then here's a chart to help you better understand this. So type of argument, we are dealing with a multi-sided argument down here. Type of audience, we are dealing with a neutral or undecided audience. You are trying to get your readers off the fence and commit and believe your position. And then rhetorical strategy. So rhetorical strategy is the term we use for what do you need to do in this essay to convince them to believe your opinion or your claim in this essay. So basically, you need to use multi-sided argumentative strategies. So what kind of multi-argumentative strategies exist for this essay? There are 3 types: summarizing, rebutting, and conceding. So one initial step for responding to another writer's position is to summarize it. So in order to rebut and concede, you must first admit that an argument already exists out there in order to even discuss it, correct? In order to even argue against it or agree for it, you must first admit that an argument exists. So you must summarize Bill Keller's or Devadas's argument. So these are some tips for how to summarize if you find that you're having trouble doing so. I know quite a few of us struggled with that in Unit 1. I highly suggest we look at this portion of it in the Unit 2 textbook. It gives you some tips on how to construct a well-organized paragraph of summary. And then it also right here, after it provides some tips, it gives you an example of how to apply this. So it provides an example of what the summary would look like. And then it shows you what it looks like put together. After you've summarized the author's alternative position, you can then focus your readers on how your position differs. Given your summary, what are the key ways in which you see the issue differently from the author? As you'll see in the 2 following sections, you can counter the author's argument or position through rebuttal strategies and concession. So rebuttal strategies, rebutting reasons, assumptions, and evidence. So this is a chart of what you might want to think of when you are rebutting, or if you're stumped as to what you might want to rebut in the argument. If you're not sure how to rebut evidence or rebut another author's claims, or if you even should do so. So again, rebutting is another term for criticizing an aspect of someone else's argument or an existing argument. So that is what you want to do. Concession. What is concession? Concession is conceding or acknowledging the strength of an alternative argument. So instead of rebutting an argument, you concede the point and then quickly shift your readers back to the overall strengths of your argument and to the ways in which your reasons benefit them. In other words, despite the strength of this one part of the alternative viewpoint, you argue that your own view is still stronger for the reasons you explain it to your readers. That describes concession. So definitely use at least one of these multi-sided argumentative strategies, if not both. And I highly recommend to do both if you find the opportunity to do so in your essay and if it strengthens your own essay. And then we have a review of the believing doubting game. So that is definitely a great point to go back to if you find that you are still not sure of which response you want to work on at this point, which response claim, which I hope all of you know which one you want to do already, but if you are still struggling with that, or if you know which one you want to do, but you need extra, to generate extra ideas, you need extra help, go back to the believing doubting game and try to generate some ideas. Then research information, incorporating sources, the source sandwich. So as I said before, incorporate at least a minimum of 2 sources in this response essay. You need to appropriately incorporate sources in a rhetorically effective manner, so a persuasive manner, by attributing authorship of ideas, quoting accurately, and connecting the source content to your own points. Remember too that you're required to include at least 2 credible outside sources for your response essay. So what is the source sandwich? So if we remember the 3X example, and I also showed this in a PowerPoint, this is essentially what that is. It's another way of thinking of how to organize your body paragraphs if you find you're having trouble either with organization or with expanding your writing, making your essay longer, for example. You're having trouble analyzing and writing more. This will help you write. So you can think of the top slice, always include a topic sentence, introduce the author. That would be the 3X example. That would be the exposition statement. Then you move on to example, include the example. And then you have the third E, which is explanation. Explain, explain, explain. Explain the example. And then you can go back and forth between include example, explain the example, example, explanation, back and forth. The source sandwich is also used to describe how to properly quote another author's work or words. So I also demonstrated this in a previous PowerPoint, so please go back and review that if you want more detailed information from me. But basically, you need to properly attribute source and credit to the author's work. So however they stated it, you need to properly attribute that. And below are some examples so that your writing doesn't become too repetitive if you keep stating the same author over and over. So Keller states, according to Keller, Keller writes in his editorial, Keller maintains that. So you can vary your writing in your language. And then at the end of this essay, or excuse me, of this textbook, are student example essays, one of which I reviewed in the previous week's PowerPoint. I highly, highly suggest you review the essays. You go over and look at their structure, especially. If you find that you're struggling with your writing, you're not sure how to write the essay, go to the student examples and try to mimic their structure. Try to see what the students did and see if you can compare it. That is always the go-to. But otherwise, let me stop the share. We are done with this review, we are done with this review PowerPoint. If you have any questions at all, please contact me, send me an email, or come to my office hours. But otherwise, I am looking forward to reading all of your response essays.